Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It is really cool to have everybody on board. Kim is here, and so is Tony. Both of them are here. So that's cool. Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, and
Kim, how are you?
I, of course, am happy. Had a great night last night. I know you're thinking, were you immersed in the trial of... in this unprecedented trial of a former president who has been brought up on criminal charges associated with election tampering? No. I was watching, as all good senior citizen Americans are probably doing also. I was watching Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. Yes, of course. And...
wow, Vanna looks like an Oscar. Look at her. She's all gold.
It does have a kind of Oscar-ish feel. I wasn't really watching Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. I was watching Jeopardy Masters, but it's sort of like bleeds right into Celebrity Wheel. And look at that Pat Sajak. He looks amazing, doesn't he? I think it's pretty special. I have never looked as good as Pat Sajak looks. I don't know. How old is Pat Sajak? Maybe you can check. Kim, I'm guessing... how old is Pat Sajak, everybody?
Google it.
I'm going to say he's 76, 75. Not in that picture he's not, but in that other picture he is. And even given the fact that, they probably, they retouched the pictures a bit. 72, says Tom.
I have the answer. Tell me when you want it.
Oh, hang on a second. 69, we've got a full-on guessing game going. 69 says Robert. 77 says Randy. That seems closest maybe to me. 72 says Gordon. 78 says Chris. 72 says Audrey. And 81 says Jim. What is the actual retail price?
It would be Randy for the win. He is 77.
Wow, Randy, congratulations. I can't believe how good Pat Sajak looks. The key to looking that great, everybody, first of all, you have to have good genetics. And you have to, start with a decent canvas, okay? So let's grant that. But after that, hosting a game show 5 days a month for 40 years, you know what? That's a low-stress gig, and you're probably going to end up looking good at the end of it. Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to take it with a grain of salt, as you said, that's the professional promotional photo.
Sure.
So it's airbrushed,
Of course. But I'm telling you, I watched, and that's the way he looks. You see that shot right there that we're showing? That's from the show. And he is... now, somebody says plastic surgery and a makeup team. Phineas says that.
Yeah.
I don't... I mean, maybe, but he's still... gosh, guy looks good. He is retiring. That's right. This is his last year. Your last chance to catch the Sajak doing his Sajaking on Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Seacrest takes over. So anyway, yeah, Sajak is gorgeous. Who said that? Mindy? I agree. He's my kind of man. He is a hunk of man.
Girl, you just woo.
Right.
It just seems like too much for Ryan Seacrest. I mean, how many jobs does he have?
Well, you can never have too many. You can never have too much money. As I mentioned to you, I mean, that's his view, and I think probably the view of most of us, to be fair to him. And as I just mentioned, you only have to work 5 days a month. So it's not as though, like, oh, my God, Ryan, I don't know if you'll have to work lunch for 5 days. You'll have to work through lunch. I did try out for a few game show gigs. And thank you for asking, Phineas. I actually had a game show called Hole in the Wall, and it had the distinguishing feature of the, and then I'll tell you who's on the show, David K. Johnston, of course, and everything else, but just because you've asked, Phineas, and thank you for asking. Thank you for asking about my favorite subject, which is me.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. So let me regale you with a quick story. Vanna is 67, says Suan. Oh, interesting.
Talk about looking good.
Yeah,
Man.
they both look great. The only thing that was distinguishing about the show, though, it was the #1 format worldwide, so they brought it here, they made it bigger. It was these people, there I am, hosting Hole in the Wall, and there were these huge walls that would come at contestants as they stood there in these silver suits. You see them there? And they'd have to shape themselves or jump through the wall holes to make it through. Otherwise, they would be knocked into this big pool behind them. It was a very visual show. It was really fun. The distinguishing feature beyond the big nature of the show that I've just described, kind of the physical nature of the show, was that at the time, might still be, it was the biggest game show audience in the history of television.
Wow.
650 people were in the audience, and it was deafening.
Like you mean a live audience?
Live audience,
Yeah.
deafening. And we shot it over on the Radford lot where they shot Seinfeld, for example, and a lot of other shows. And this was it. You see how there's a green in the foreground? That's a pool. Yeah. And the person is trying to shape themselves, into the hole that's there. And my catchphrase, Kim, was, it's time to face the hole. That was the...
What?
Yeah, I know. That was it. Look, so... it was a huge, fun show.
How long was it on? Uh-oh.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
They always ask about how long it's on instead of just getting into how good a show was. They shot 22. We shot 22 of them. And it was produced by, and I'm going to answer your question, produced by the people who produce American Idol, Fremantle. So we thought, can't miss. And in fact, it was scheduled to be on after American Idol. Now, American Idol, and then I will wrap up and we'll move on to politics and all the stuff going on in the world. And American Idol always took credit for having launched House, that show on Fox called House.
Love that show.
So, yeah. And they felt that, in fact, they used to call House the house that Idol built. That was sort of the inside Fremantle. They talked about it that way. So anyway, we were supposed to go on after Idol, and it was going to, and we're thinking, oh my God, this is going to be great. This show can't miss. You got the Idol audience. Idol was smoking hot at the time. And this show, which is big and visual and for the whole family, well, at the time, there was another show called Wipeout, and it came on ABC, and it was doing really well. So instead of waiting to premiere our show after Idol, they just rushed our show onto the air. Idol wasn't on. And we rushed on a Sunday. And Sunday on the East Coast, which is where most of the ratings come in, from East Coast viewership, the ball game went into overtime. So now you're joining a show in progress, my show, that has never been seen by anyone. No one knows even how the game is played. And you're joining it in progress because the NFL overtime basically took a huge chunk out of the beginning of your show.
You got screwed.
So the answer is to your question.
I blame you.
Well, I sadly saw I think they aired all of them, but the show came and went like a summer breeze. Yeah, one of those things. Anyway, but that might, Ms. Organic, my friend competed on Wipeout. Isn't that wild?
Is that the one where you go on a kind of a course and then you get knocked off by these giant inflatables?
Exactly. Exactly. Very big and visual like our show.
Yeah.
Bummer, Mark. Exactly. Thank you, Gordon, for feeling my pain. Now you understand why I feel that, There's Wipeout. Yeah, we've shown you pictures. Well, we didn't expect to talk about any of this. We've got a very busy show, but I'm glad we could digress. And might I say, there's quite the competition going on in the celebrity Masters tournament. Jeopardy Masters tournament, and the Celebrity Wheel of Fortune had Neil deGrasse Tyson playing last night.
Oh.
So for pure popcorn primetime game show fare.
How do you beat that guy?
Exactly.
Honestly. I mean, he has a huge brain.
But
you can't put him in Celebrity Jeopardy. I mean, that's not fair.
No, he's not in Celebrity Jeopardy. He's in Celebrity Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, and that's all about luck, right?
Well, it's not all about luck, but it is. You're right. It's about Wheel of Fortune. You have to spin the wheel, and
it's not really a brainy show.
If misfortune strikes you, then you are screwed.
Yeah.
So there's that. Smash the like button like a boss. Do it for
with
Neil
your
deGrasse
iron
Tyson.
rod.
There he is. There's Neil talking to Pat Sajak, and. It was kind of cool. But again, as I say, I hadn't planned to watch Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, except for the fact that I've been watching Jeopardy Masters. And, again, it just bleeds into the other one. And you're going, all right, I'll take a look at it. I've been watching the basketball game. So
it's the new trick they have, not the new trick, but the trick they have where they pull out the commercials between the two shows so that one show goes right into another and you don't have that commercial stop set where you would push the off button. And then before you know it, you're sucked into something completely new that you had no intention of being sucked into.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It does work. Kim is absolutely right. All right, well, let me get into some stuff. We'll mention to you that, of course,
The Mark Thompson Show.
The great David K. Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner, the Trumpologist, he joins us in the second hour, along with a guest who is not political, but from the world of show business. Jay Kogan, former executive producer on Frasier and any number of other sitcoms. He's written for a film. He's written for television. He's done everything from kids shows to, as I say, hit adult shows like Frasier. And he's just a brilliant mind, I want to ask him what he's up to, but he's an American comedy writer. I think also he's got a very cool podcast. So he'll tell us about that as well. So Jay will join us in the second hour. This hour is populated by a lot of different stuff, not the least of which is law and disorder. I've got it overflowing from yesterday, and we'll get to it today also. And let's try to get to these super stickers. Thank you to Spencer Jaffe, super sticker. And, we're crowd-funded, so a big shout out to those in the crowd who fund us. And Spencer is there almost every day, with something. By the way, Peter, is this my game show talk is not engaging Peter? That makes
Peter's
me
like,
sad.
no.
By the way, speaking of people who aren't engaged, you were supposed to remind me that what's his name who was in timeout. He was red carded.
Oh, Andrew Peters.
Andrew Peters. So
Yeah.
I have to. It was inadvertent that we've actually extended his red carding for another day, but tomorrow I'll.
I don't
get
feel
him
sad
back.
about that.
No, I know.
I feel like I'm not missing anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, Kim's tough. She's very, very tough that way.
My sister from another mister. Yeah.
With a super sticker. How about a $10 super sticker from Lucy? Thank you. I will, Lucy McAllister, thank you. You're my second favorite McAllister, although I gotta be honest, it's close. And
She
it could
can be your favorite
take your top spot.
McAllister. Yeah, she's a McAllister.
No, okay, well, to me, she's McAllister. You
I'm a
say it quickly, it's the
McAllister.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So I want to mention, and then I am going to get into a massive story, and I think it's key in swing states. It has nothing to do with polling, although I will ask David K. Johnston about the polling that I reviewed yesterday on the program. It is our big June Swoon virtual meetup. It's a big Zoom meetup with our listener viewers.
What?
Yeah. Special guests are scheduled to join as well. It's June 3rd, which is a Monday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. It is June Swoon, and we will be swooning and Juning with only 25 people.
Now, swooning is I'm swaying on my feet because I'm overcome by something.
I think that
Google it.
is a fair characterization. I think is to be swept up might be a way I would think of it.
Okay, all right.
But you sign up at our PayPal with a $50 donation to lock up a spot. And when you sign up at PayPal, the links for PayPal are on all of our videos, under all of our videos. You can note Meetup or June Swoon, so we know that you have designated that $50 donation for your June Swoon spot. You can also drop us a line. We have a special email for our June Swoon virtual meetup, mtsmeetup@gmail.com, mtsmeetup@gmail.com. June Swoon, I promise it'll be junior and swoonier than ever before. Please join us, and I'll mention it again before the end of the show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We do a lot of politics on this show because politics have become important, and I would say almost a connection to what's happening politically in America. There's an existential need to be connected. Before I get to Roar the Tiger says, once auditioned for Jeopardy, did well on the written test, but this is before the Trebek rule. So during a mock game, I didn't even get out of the gate. Oh, What is the Trebek rule?
I don't know.
Oh, this is before you're saying before the time of Alex Trebek, the reign of Alex Trebek. Is that what you mean by that Roar of the Tiger? It's a really tough written test, but yeah, that's only part of it. You have to be able to buzz in and have to have that personality. Mark, Kim, I'll let you know if I start missing Andrew Peters' says content. Well, and Lori, who is the teacher, Lori, says, a swoon is a precursor to a faint. You feel like you're going to faint. The name not really a good fit unless the proximity of MT makes you swoon. Well, I think maybe you should read your own explanation then. And
I do feel faint whenever I'm around you, Mark
It's
Thompson.
not me. Look at our special guests. We have Spencer Christian, Pat Thurston may come through, John Rothman, Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC is going to be there. Jim Avila, the former senior correspondent at ABC, political. I mean, we've got a lot of people coming through. So you can be swooning over many others besides me.
The official meaning, number one, to faint. Number two, and this is applicable, to be overwhelmed by ecstatic joy.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go.
You. Thank you. Thank you very much. Here's a contribution to extend the dude's red card time. That's from Luis.
Well done, Luis.
Yeah, the $5.99. I really or $4.99. Appreciate
Big
that.
shout
Big
out.
shout out. Well done. Well done. All right, guys. Can we just get a hold of ourselves now? And I have something important to impart. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
a top conservative group is dropping $70 million more into fighting vulnerable Democrats in key Senate races nationwide. This is a huge sum of money, $70 million. That's roughly double what this conservative group's drop was in the entire investment cycle last time. One Nation, they're called. It's a nonprofit advocacy outfit closely aligned with GOP leaders, and the top GOP super PAC is dropping tens of millions into 5 key battleground states. It's dividing up that $70 million into Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada. This is a sweeping ad buy. And what do you think they are emphasizing in that ad buy? The southern border and inflation.
Economy, yep.
This is an effort branded the Stop the Insanity campaign. They have spending on radio, mail, and digital. Their total spend, as I mentioned, this is $70 million more they're dropping in. Their total spend this cycle is $88 million.
Yikes.
More than double what they ran last year. They're going to start, as I say, ads in Ohio later this month, and then they're going to move to Pennsylvania. Almost $30 million in ads in Ohio, almost $20 million in ads in Pennsylvania. And then they're going after Montana as well. One Nation, they're called. President Joe Biden and liberals in Congress have enacted policies that are hurting our country, and it's time to tell them to stop the insanity. It's kind of a vibe like that. The world of politics is informed a lot by the framing, and the GOP is framing the southern border as the biggest issue. I'd love to, and I will get to, law and disorder in a moment, but I want to share a non-political story with you. I always like the lottery stories.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And this lottery story involves a... Oh, it's not... here, I'll get it this way. This lottery story involves a guy who found the lottery ticket.
Like randomly on the sidewalk?
No. He bought a bunch of lottery tickets, okay? And then I'm doing this from memory, but I'll have the story for you in a second. He bought a bunch of lottery tickets. He regularly plays the lottery, right? And in all of these lottery tickets, he found a bunch of losing tickets. You know, he hung on to the ones that didn't come in, right? And apparently, in looking through the losing stack, he found a winner. And it wasn't a small winner. It was $1 million.
What?
Whoa.
This happened in South Carolina. He purchased the winning ticket at, gosh, this just bailed on me. But at Food Lion is the name of the, it's that food store.
Of course, that's a nice place.
Yeah, nice place to purchase a ticket. I didn't believe it, the man told lottery officials. He didn't check to see if he won for more than a month after the winning ticket was pulled. It was on his living room table alongside several other losing tickets. The ticket matched the first 5 numbers drawn but missed the mega ball number. So he wins $1 million. What does he plan to do with the money, Kim?
He plans to save for retirement, buy a new sports car, and play the lottery again. Was I close?
That's exactly right. And he plans to save the winnings for his new wife, everybody.
What?
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Come
no.
on. No, retirement with his existing wife. He's going to actually hang on, at least for the moment, to the wife that he has.
Sure.
And he's going to move into retirement. So good on him. Congratulations. And there'll be a big banging life awaiting him in retirement. Under Trebek, here is the word on the Trebek rule. Roar the Tiger for a $5 super chat.
Big shout out.
Says, under Trebek, no one was allowed to buzz in until he finished giving the answer. Isn't that still the case? Oh, I see. Yes, you're saying when you, now I understand. You're saying when you took the test, that wasn't the test.
Buzz in at any time?
The minute they reveal the clue, you buzz in, even though he hadn't read it yet. Now you have to wait, and then there's that light, and Buzzy was here and explained it, but I think most people, get it by now. Wow. Good stuff, Roar the Tiger. Good knowledge. Yeah.
And it makes sense because, I mean, it's no fun for the viewer to watch a show where you can't even hear the question, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, I don't know. You can still, I get it. I get it. Is that here or is that there? Do you hear that beeping?
Yeah.
What is that, Tony?
I don't know. It's either you or Kim.
No, it's not me because it's coming through the headphones. So it must be Kim.
Is it going on and on and on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I blame you.
Well, he can blame me, but I think it's you, Kim. Anyway.
Stop.
Well, that beeping has totally thrown me off my game, but as a professional, I will continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Tony, are you ready? I'm ready to take off a big chunk. Let's do it. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
Pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care.
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
In a moment, I'll get to Steve Buscemi being punched in a random Manhattan attack. Maybe Kim can give me the latest on it. I can tell you what happened. But I was astounded when I learned that my darling Steve Buscemi was assaulted and was being treated in a hospital. More on that in a moment. As I say, maybe Kim can get me the very latest. But I start in prison. A federal appeals court is condemning the stark and egregious violation of a religious freedom by a prisoner. His dreadlocks were shaved by prison guards in prison. He is a Rastafarian, Kim. Are you familiar with Rastafarians?
Yeah, they're from Jamaica, right? It's part of their hair, is part of their lifestyle and their religion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Damon Landor, his faith requires him to let his hair grow long.
Yeah.
He started a 5-month prison term for drug possession in Louisiana. His dreads, that's kind of a term I use. Call it, instead of dreadlocks, I say dreads just to kind of seem cool. They fell nearly to his knees. So this is not like, this is a real commitment.
Long, yeah.
He had the dreads cut by prison officials. And he was, this is a long but bizarre kind of determination. I mean, there is a shot of him with the dreads and without the dreads. Mm-hmm. When I was strapped down and shaved, it felt like I was raped. And the guards, they just didn't care. They will treat you any kind of way, he says. They knew better than to cut my hair, but they did it anyway. The guards consulted the warden, and 2 guards handcuffed Landor to the chair, and that's how they did it. Well, he sued the warden and the guards. The law is the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. And when the case reached the Fifth Circuit, the same court that had ruled that the law protected Rastafarian prisoners' dreadlocks came up with a different ruling. It was a different 3-judge panel. They said, quote, "We emphatically condemn the treatment that Landor endured." But they didn't provide any relief to Mr. Landor. They ruled that he was not entitled to sue the prison. And he was not entitled to sue the prison officials for money.
Well,
this month, he's asked the Supreme Court to hear this case. And the court did not find, he asked the Supreme Court to hear the case, and he said the Fifth Circuit's ruling was at odds with a recent decision interpreting the identical language. And so, again, we go from Fifth Circuit to bumping it up. And it's suggested that, sadly, he may get the agreement of justices as to the fact that this is a violation, but that there is there's no actionable civil rectification of this, that you can't rectify it civilly.
Did they give a reason for cutting off the hair? I mean, did someone try to smuggle drugs in them? Did someone grab it and use it as a weapon? Or did they just randomly do it to be mean?
Well, this is very commonplace in Louisiana. Apparently, at least 5 other lawsuits were filed by Rastafarians who say their dreadlocks were forcibly shaved by prison officials. So this isn't their first go-round on this. Yeah. And he can sue for other kinds of relief besides money, like a declaration that the prison system's grooming policy is unlawful. You can have an injunction against ordering prison officials to not to shave these heads anymore. But he served his time, so that kind of relief doesn't do him any good. It was a law passed by Congress to prevent these kinds of abuses in prison. The law requires prison officials to respect the religious practices of people who are incarcerated. But if you don't have any damages, then, there's no real threat to anybody running these prisons. It's a right without remedy, said the attorney. And prison officials can ignore it with impunity. In any case, that leads us off. Now, a major Hollywood star, the actor who starred in Boardwalk Empire, assaulted by a stranger in Manhattan. It was a random act of violence. Guy ran at Steve Buscemi. He was carrying a rock. He was taken to Bellevue Hospital, treated for bruising, swelling, bleeding in his left eye. Happened right there in Midtown Manhattan. Any update on Steve Buscemi, Kim?
The Today Show caught up with him, and they said he looked bruised, but he was up and walking around. So health-wise, he seems to have some bruises and some scrapes, but he seems to be okay. Don't know mentally if he's still shaken by that. The picture that you saw of that man with the blue shirt, that's who they're seeking in this case.
That's wild because that guy looks totally normal.
Right? He looks like just some random guy walking down. I wouldn't be scared of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really incredible. He grabbed a rock and actually attacked Buscemi, at least supposedly.
NYPD appealing for the public's help identifying that man.
Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys legend. He is going to be entering into a conservatorship, unable to handle his own affairs, apparently, to some extent. An LA Superior Court judge has signed off on a conservatorship for Beach Boys Brian Wilson. The petition to seek oversight for Wilson's affairs had been filed in January, shortly after Wilson's wife, Melinda, died. It was a decision just filed, and they agree, the Superior Court does, with Wilson's doctor that Wilson suffers from, quote, major neurocognitive disorder that requires help to make healthcare decisions. He is 81 years old, for those who are curious. It was a huge incident at McDonald's. You know, these fast food disagreements, Kim, they get ugly.
People are very passionate about their Big Macs.
They really are. And this particular situation turned super ugly. A guy now has turned himself in after shooting and killing somebody at a Houston McDonald's.
Oh, no.
But listen to what happened. A 57-year-old man, nearly a week after he allegedly shot and killed an attorney, turns himself in. The altercation was at a McDonald's in Houston. Anthony Martin Landry charged with murdering Jeffrey Limmer, who was 46. It just happened on May 4th. The Houston cops say that he's now in custody, but he had fled the scene, and it stemmed from a verbal disagreement. But the disagreement didn't start between Landry and Limmer. Landry demanded a refund from the people who were working the McDonald's after becoming angry with the staff regarding his order. Limmer stepped in. He's an attorney there. I mean, not at McDonald's, I mean, in the Houston area. Mm-hmm. He stepped in to kind of like de-escalate the whole conflict. But when he stepped in, Landry then turned his focus on him, and Limmer got into a fight. Limmer and Landry got into a physical altercation. Limmer pushed Landry to the ground. Landry grabbed a gun from his vehicle and shot Limmer.
To death?
Yes.
Oh, God.
It's horrible. It's horrible. But again, there's so much going on there that's reflective of everyone super tense. Mm-hmm. This guy tries to do the right thing, de-escalate a situation. And then, of course, in the United States of guns, he's got a gun right in his truck. He goes out, grabs it, comes back in, and kills the guy. But now he's turned himself in. 4 flight attendants are charged with allegedly smuggling drug money out of the U.S. This feels very caperish, very heisty, doesn't it? They've been charged with smuggling drug money between the U.S. and Dominican Republic. In the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney's Office says the flight attendants have been charged with years-long participation in smuggling narcotics, trafficking proceeds from the United States to the Dominican Republic on commercial flights. Well, that's the place to do it. I mean, you're on the commercial flight anyway if you're going to traffic it, right? The defendants, Charlie Hernandez, 42, Sarah Pujols, 24, Emmanuel Torres, 34, and Harold Fabio, 35, are arrested. That's right. The party's over.
Good day, sir.
The four have been accused of engaging in drug money smuggling activity from JFK to the Dominican Republic. This whole thing's been going on from 2015. The defendants were employed as flight attendants with different international airlines. They spread it around, Kim. Mm-hmm. And those routes between New York City and the Dominican Republic, that's a sweet ride. When you're strapped with a lot of cash. The flight attendants smuggled millions of dollars of drug money and law enforcement funds that they thought was drug money. You know, that's what happened. They were infiltrated, and ultimately they were found out, and now they are busted.
Sayonara, sucker.
Crime doesn't pay, Kim.
It was the flight attendant retirement plan, and it just didn't work out, you know?
Crime doesn't pay. And, of course, two notes in politics. Jim Justice, he's the GOP fire-breathing dragon of West Virginia. He has been pursued in court for years. He's very Trumpian, Jim Justice. He doesn't pay his bills. He's been sued in court by business partners. I mean, I'm talking about millions of dollars in unmet obligations financially. And his family's companies have managed to just dodge one threat after another. Well, now Jim Justice, he's the governor, right? He's the incumbent governor, isn't he? West Virginia. Anyway, now things just may be catching up to him.
It is a great name, though, Governor Justice.
Well, it's ironic in this case, right? It's super ironic.
Yes, Jim Justice has been the governor of West Virginia since 2017.
Yeah. The son of a coal magnate. He took over the family business in 93 and expanded its interest beyond coal with acquisitions to agriculture and high-end hospitality. It's a sprawling business, but the business and the Justice family taken on a reputation for not paying their bills and paying their partners or the banks. A bank in neighboring Virginia that has served the Justice family for decades has begun the process of collecting on more than $300 million in defaulted loans.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What?
Some of the family business's prized assets, chief among them, the 246-year-old Greenbrier Resort. They own it.
Not anymore, they don't.
Yeah, the bank wants it. And collections on the governor's personal bank accounts, even his house, that's all a possibility now.
Looks like a pretty nice place.
Oh, this guy lives large. It's so much easier to live larger when you're not paying any of your debts. Jim Justice is, even as though he might lose some of these things, he is currying favor with foreign banks, foreign investors. Mm-hmm. So Jim Justice has a lot of wiggling to do. And while he has settled with some of those that he owes, the entire saga continues. That's Jim Justice. The breaking news of the morning, of course, is that the Trump gag order appeal was turned down. So I'm sure Kim will have more on that. I mean, that's essentially the big, that's the story, essentially. Mm-hmm. And we'll address it along with everything else with David K. Johnston when we get to everything going on with Trump in Manhattan. So all of that still to come. That is Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Again, I will remind you that we have a June Swoon meetup. That's right. It's the first meetup of the summer, maybe the only meetup of the summer. June Swoon. Swooning and Juning. It'll happen, and there will be special guests on board. Again, it's a virtual meetup. It's not an actual physical meetup. You don't have to drive anywhere or dress specially or anything. You can just connect with us June 3rd from 6 until 8 Pacific time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. We only have spots for 25 people because we want to be able to interact with everybody. If it gets too big, it's harder. Sign up at our PayPal. PayPal links beneath all of our videos. And then when you sign up with a $50 donation to lock up a spot, just note meetup or June Swoon, something like that, and we'll know that we should hold a seat for you. You can RSVP also after you've done that to a special email address. June Swoon has its own email address, this meetup.
This is kind of a big deal then.
It is. It's a very, very big deal. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. It's our June Swoon, June 3rd meetup virtually. I hope you'll be there. Kim's News, and then the great David K. Johnston. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Well, it is back on in the Trump trial situation, and Michael Cohen is back on the stand. He's facing cross-examination this afternoon in former President Trump's criminal hush money trial in New York. Earlier today, Mr. Cohen testified he instructed Stormy Daniels' lawyer to lie about an alleged sexual encounter with the former president. It is Cohen's second day on the stand. He is expected to be the final witness for the prosecution. Trump, of course, charged with criminally falsifying business records in this hush money payment. There are millions of people across the United States right now coping with another day of heavy smoke from wildfires that are raging across Canada. As the smoke shifts south of Topeka, Kansas, and Kansas City, they're dealing with the worst air quality in the country. The smoke is expected to linger in parts of the Midwest through Tuesday before a cold front will bring in rain and clear out some conditions there. Not really the best news, but the new data shows inflation is remaining stubbornly high. The Labor Department reported a 0.5% jump in the producer price index last month, nearly double what economists had expected. Those wholesale prices are a key gauge of inflation, and they come just ahead of Wednesday's consumer price index. So not the news they would have wanted. There is a Jewish UCLA student suing the University of California Regents now. Liana Nitka's lawsuit, filed on Monday, says the university failed to protect her and other Jewish students and faculty from pro-Palestinian demonstrators who were recently on campus.
Who told you that this was going to happen? I told you this the minute this stuff was allowed to get going. I said, there are going to be lawsuits. You do have to ensure the safety of my kids at university. It's a legitimate complaint.
Well, the lawsuit calls the protesters campus terrorists. Nitka's proposed class action lawsuit claims civil rights violations, negligence, assault, battery, and breach of contract. The lawsuit also says protesters who camped out at UCLA for a week intended to create and sow division on campus through acts of disruption, chaos, and dissension. And she sues.
This has nothing to do with what the cause is. It has everything to do with the fact that the university has to take action and provide an environment that's secure for students.
I mean, if you're paying that much to attend, you would think they would take it seriously.
Yeah, I don't know that they'll make any kind of headway with the lawsuit. I mean, Louis White might be right. Like, good luck with that lawsuit. But I think it is a fact that there is an expectation of basic safety around what I would suggest is basic understandings of securing an environment. Meaning, and I'll just to round out the point in 15 seconds or less, I know crazy stuff happens. Somebody comes on campus, you didn't know about them, et cetera, and then something horrible happens. You can't really, I think, provide any evidence that would be actionable. But in this case, you had plenty of warning. I mean, that this is a ramp up over weeks. So I think that's the distinction.
Francisco facing even more possible budget cuts. The city controller's office will have a report ready today that details expenses by every city department and the revenues coming in. This is expected to guide Mayor London Breed on what steps she should take. She's already asked departments for proposed reductions of 10% for the next fiscal year. The sheriff says they don't have anything else to cut, with the jail population up 36% and staff down. Now, how are they supposed to make cuts? A crackdown coming to stop some free rides on muni-buses and light rail trains. San Francisco's Municipal Transportation Agency adding 24 new fare inspectors July 1st. The agency says about 20% of passengers skip out on paying. That's up from 12% before the pandemic. They warn if this keeps happening, the services could be reduced. Inspectors are working in groups of 3 to verify payment now. Lake Tahoe is expected to be full for the first time in 5 years. That's thanks to a wet winter here in California. The recent snowpack still above normal despite it being dry last month. This new report from the Department of Agriculture predicts the snowmelt will be enough to fill up Lake Tahoe. Once at full capacity, it can supply water for 3 years if snowpacks drop below normal.
And
water
it's clearer
here,
than ever, right, Kim? I mean, it
looks good. It looks really good. Mm-hmm. And speaking of this wet winter, it's also helping California's almond crop. The forecast calls for it to be up 21% this year, totaling about 3 billion pounds. I mean, I don't mean to do a farm report, but that's pretty big news. The almond bloom began in February. It was hit by a handful of storms, but the Department of Agriculture says overall mild temperatures into early March help boost the pollinations. The mature almond trees in California can use as much as 54 inches of water in an average year. So,
yeah, the almond trees, I mean, the almond crop. I mean, it's not just a farm report. I mean, that's a huge part of the California economy, agriculture.
It's true.
So, yeah.
It's a big day for the Department of Agriculture, clearly, you know. You're talking about Jeopardy? How about this? A Jeopardy spinoff is coming to Amazon Prime Video. It's called Pop Culture Jeopardy. It will be the first time a version of the game show has been created for a streaming service.
Wow.
This iteration will focus on categories from music and movies to sports and celebrities. Contestants will play in teams of 3, according to Variety. Amazon's head of unscripted programming calls it a must-watch for the longtime viewers and new fans alike. So,
what an objective evaluation that is. So
there you go.
The head of Amazon's department that came up with this feels it's a must watch. Oh,
it is a must watch indeed. It is a must watch. You know how they do.
Well, I'll check it out.
Kind of a sad situation. I'm bummed over this. There's this visual art installation that allowed New Yorkers to view people in Dublin in real time. It was like this portal, this giant portal, and you could stand in front of it and in real time see people in Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah, it was a way to link the world, wasn't it, Kim?
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm. The Dublin portal, which features a circular screen, was linked to an identical portal in the Irish capital, giving New Yorkers and Dubliners a chance to interact with one another via live stream.
There's never been anything like this.
Exactly.
But
what could possibly go wrong with that, Kim? People are saying hi to each other across the globe.
It's a way to connect. Even family members were like waving at each other and feeling connected, right?
Yes. So what happened?
So it just debuted last Wednesday, but now it's temporarily closing because people have been behaving badly. They've been flashing each other naked bodies, displaying foul language. I mean, really. Look at her with her topless.
We can't have nice things. I don't understand this.
It was such a sweet idea. I guess it's a statement on our culture, right?
Thank you. I mean,
would you like to apologize for what you've done?
Yeah, you could do a across the globe apology.
Thank you for the pictures, Tony. Tony's awesome. Look at that.
Yeah, Tony hustles the pictures.
both sides plan to work on solutions to curb these kinds of antics, like maybe software updates and barriers so the portal can reopen.
I see.
I guess they won't be able to do it in real time. They have to have a 7-second delay like radio and TV.
Oh, my
right?
God.
That's pure
Case of naked people.
Okay, wow.
Ridiculous. I mean, it was such a nice thing that people did that,
Yeah.
and now you've screwed it
Yeah.
up.
It's
Screwed it up for the rest of the class.
so essentially it was nudity and obscenities.
Yep, that's right.
That's the great American combination. Yeah, I don't know.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
We do, even across the globe, we do. But you're saying it came both ways, so it wasn't just American.
I assume that it's more us than them, but it could be wrong.
It was great. I loved it.
Literally.
Okay.
The Ireland one
I
put a
see. Look at
picture
that
of
guy
9/11.
giving the. He's
Yeah.
yeah. He's dropping his pants. Right. Yeah. He's mooning as the right.
Yeah. And the other one to the left.
The
of
other
that,
one is the World Trade Center thing. That's
someone
dude.
in
That's
Ireland
really
threw
not
that one
cool.
up.
No.
Yeah, that's what they
Oh,
did.
look, they literally have said we can't have nice things. That's not cool. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
People are jerks.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about dog shows, but there can be only one. A top dog will earn Best in Show tonight at the 148th Annual Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show in New York. There are 3,000 dogs taking part in this event. And again, tonight we get the top dog whole situation. They're judging the sporting, working, and terrier breeds before they name the best of show. So that's what we have going on. This report is sponsored by the most amazing coffee you will ever taste in your life, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Oh, have it right here.
That's right.
Never far from me.
Is it time for a sip?
Let me have a sip, just briefly. I'll have a little sip.
Yeah, that's right. It is a little heaven in your cup.
It's a
your
little
Mark
heaven in your
Thompson
cup.
Show
I'll
coffee
have
cup.
one more sip.
Yeah. It's nice, really nice. Yeah.
Life is just a little easier after a sip of the rich, delicious Coachella Valley coffee.
Hand roasted, fresh.
Hand roasted, indeed. Yeah.
It's you can you can find the huge selection of coffees and amazing teas, really, as you can tell from Mark's sighs and gasps. It's a treat just for you. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And when you get something in your electronic cart and you're checking out, make sure to enter coupon code MARKT, MARKT, no spaces, all together, and get your exclusive 10% discount from The Mark Thompson Show. Enjoy.
Now, you say coupon, I've noticed. Is that really the way you say it, or you kind of...
Is it coupon or coupon?
It's not... It's coupon.
Coupon or coupon?
I think. I mean...
It's a tomato word.
It might be.
Google it.
I mean, it might be Googleable, though. I'm just saying. No, you did not miss David K. Johnston. We were waiting for his arrival. So everybody stand by. But you think if David was in the green room, we would be killing time talking about coupon or coupon? It's coupon. Thank you. I will take my prize off the air.
Oh, my God.
Kim, I don't know why you can't get stuff right, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
I just don't know what the problem
It's
is.
a coupon.
I blame you.
Whatever. I
So
blame
the
my mother.
coupon code-
She also says buffet instead of buffet. So,
Coupon code is
the coupon
Mark T at
coupon
checkout.
code.
At checkout.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you get 10% off, and it's worth it. And the tea and the coffee is amazing, and you should try it.
I didn't mean to take the wind out of your sails, Kim. I think
totally
you did a great
did.
job with that
You
movie,
just-
with the
Yeah.
with
You
the
poked my
whatever it is
sails.
that you do.
My
Yeah, I
sails
thought you
have
did a
come
nice
down.
job.
They're flapping in the wind now. That's it. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show. They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson. Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
I'm not gonna cry! I'm not gonna cry!
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
My bad. I'm sorry.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Have you ever seen anything like this? There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
There's never been anything like this.
Why are you yelling?
Good day, sir.
Seriously, what the?
You will tell me when David K. Johnston arrives. We're expecting him in just a moment. I will tell you that in the meantime, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is losing Melinda Gates. 24 years she's been doing it, helming the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I mean, as you know, Bill Gates out, but Melinda has hung on. Now she's going to start her own foundation. I think she's taking with her $12.5 billion. She's been very active with women's issues. And boy, isn't it a time when women need some activism from those who have a couple of dollars? And there she is. When the foundation got its start, she played sort of more of a behind-the-scenes role. She was engaged from the beginning. As her children grew older, she started spending more time at the foundation's offices, staking a claim for herself. She became its voice on family planning, maternal care, and other development-related issues that specifically affected women. Her departure is the latest step in the evolution of the Gates Foundation, the world's largest private foundation. They've gone from public health and development to agriculture and education. The foundation is a highly influential player, giving away billions of dollars annually. And the future direction of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been a bit, now, clouded probably by the divorce announcement, right? There was some question as to the future. They were married 27 years. And the foundation said that she would continue working as a co-chair, but now she's stepping away. And with her moving away, it'll be interesting to see how this foundation proceeds. Now, there are critics of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The critics would say, hey, how come America and the world needs philanthropists who get huge tax write-offs by setting up these foundations and making those donations to handle so many issues domestically and internationally? Here you go. This just, I say it, and here it is in the chat. Vince says, world's biggest tax dodge. Big old tax shelter, says Champagne. So this is a reasonable criticism around some of these huge billionaires who make these immense donations and set up these foundations. It is a tax shelter. That is indisputably true.
They also do wonderful things for the world, though.
They also do wonderful things for the world. And now let me just run out the criticism part, though, and then I can double back. Mm-hmm. The criticism part would say, yes, but the wonderful things they do for the world, they decide upon unilaterally. There is no meeting, legislators discussing. There is no a discussion about what vaccines should be offered to various areas of Africa. Various seeds that may be planted. You know, they have a very active agricultural arm of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So these are the criticisms. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't truth to the notion that they are doing much good for the world. But it is an odd thing that we need to create essentially an instrument to get so much help to both our people domestically and to the world at large. Anyway, regardless whether you take the critical view of it or whether you take the supportive view of it, she is leaving the foundation with $12.5 billion in her pocket, and she's going to work independent of the foundation on her own things. So that's the news of the moment there.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And now a much-awaited conversation. This man is an extraordinary source for all things Trump. He has documented the life of Donald Trump, the legal travails of Donald Trump, the tax dodging of Donald Trump, and he lectures all around the country and the world, and you've seen him all over television during this time where they've referred often to this man as the Trumpologist. And he is, I think, indisputably the resource on Donald Trump, who finds himself in the focus of more legal problems. How about it for David K. Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner? Hello, David.
Hello, Mark.
So, David, what a week. And this is the crescendo, I suppose, of testimony that really laid the foundation for what Cohen is sort of, I would suggest, sort of buttressing. In other words, he's just kind of reinforcing a lot of what was laid by the prosecution prior to his testimony. Isn't that the case?
Yes. He's the final witness for the prosecution. And the function of his direct testimony was to do two things. One was to fill in some holes in the knowledge of other people to show that Donald Trump was directly involved in setting up, approving, and making the payoff and hiding the payoff money to Stormy Daniels. But secondly, all good litigators know that you don't win a case with facts, you win it with a narrative. I mean, that's how we learn. I mean, one of the problems with some of modern journalism, particularly in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and has been writing stuff that often reads more like a policy memo than a story. And so it's very important for prosecutors, especially where there's some complexity, to get across a narrative. The prosecution has I think, clearly proved its case. It has the checks, the documents, the transmittals, and more than that, the way the prosecutors put together the case, they have taken away from Trump a number of defenses. He cannot credibly argue that, yes, it's true, but I did this so Melania wouldn't know about it. There's clear, unrefuted testimony that he didn't care what Melania thought, never brought it up, and he took the view that if he could delay paying Stormy Daniels till after the 2016 election, then he wouldn't have to pay her, because if he lost, it wouldn't matter. Wait a minute, Melania is still there, and if he won, he would somehow deal with it. And he apparently, based on the testimony yesterday or Friday, I'm not sure which of the two, made a remark indicating that he didn't care about Melania. You know, if he needed to find a fourth wife, that would be very simple and easy to do. And I'm sure if Melania decides to leave him, she will find herself in a very valuable marriage market of the kind that Pamela Averill Harriman found herself in. I mean, there's a sort of a market out there for women who've been married to famous men, and other men with a lot of money want to marry them.
Well, by the way, that moment in the trial was so consistent with a lot of the stuff that I've read in your books. I mean, stuff that Trump said, it sounded like Trump's words. It was completely consistent with what we know about him.
So today, what's happening is the same thing that happened when Stormy Daniels was on the witness stand. Instead of the defense lawyers simply getting up, muddying the water some, trying to damage the credibility of the witness, they are defending as instructed by Donald Trump. And he's basically instructed his lawyers, and you can see this in the questions, to torture the guy and make him feel a lot of pain. That doesn't help you with a jury. But Donald doesn't think that way. I mean, Donald believes in his own mind he's the far greatest human being who ever existed, the expert on every major subject. And so his delusionality is well established. But his lawyers clearly have acquiesced. And the last time Trump did this, directing the lawyers, was the second E. Jean Carroll defamation case The first case was a $5 million award. The second case, it was an $83 million award, which most of us would probably learn at that point, I should listen to my lawyers instead of telling them what to do, but not Donald.
Yeah, he's not the keen legal strategist. And more, you see that he's surrounded by people who want to please him. And indeed, even in the courtroom, these lawyers appear to want to do that. So let me just follow up, though, and ask you, so how then are these lawyers at sort of Donald Trump's behest, how are they denigrating Cohen?
Well, Michael, whom I've talked to a number of times, is unsurprisingly obsessed with this. So remember that the Trump Justice Department prosecuted Michael Cohen, and he went to prison. And then when he had a book about to come out because he'd been released to home confinement because of COVID, put him back in jail, which was found to be a constitutional violation by the Trump administration. So it's not unreasonable that he's obsessed about this stuff. But Michael has been tweeting and TikToking especially, and giving comments that have made the kind of remarks that leave prosecutors worried that juries won't trust Michael Cohen. It isn't the argument that he's a liar. We put liars on the stand everywhere. We are all liars. You know, your 4-year-old says, "Is Santa real?" You know, you lie. Unless you're a monster like Donald Trump's father, Fred, he probably said, "Oh, no, it's all just a trick to get money out of you." People lie. You know, some of the best sources I've had in my life were Harry Kaladuris, a mob hitman. Everything he told me, police, FBI agents, public records backed up. A San Francisco guy who was a gay procurer / pimp heroin dealer to some of the leading business and law figures in San Francisco. And so the public would see him, as my bureau chief did, as, "Who is that person? What are you doing talking to this person?" Fabulous source. Everything was true. Michael Cohen, by his own account, was paid by Donald Trump to lie and bully. Once he broke with Trump and was prosecuted, his interest now is in telling the truth. And he has not been rattled yet by the cross-examination. He has been giving measured answers. He apparently takes a beat before he answers. He gets a question, he thinks for a second, and then he answers. He'll be off the witness stand Thursday. There's no trial tomorrow, probably Thursday. I don't know who the Trump defense would put on, and they may not put on a defense. Donald is certainly not going to testify because Donald can't keep his lies straight. There's just too many of them. So despite all his bravado, he will never testify. If he does testify, he'll just absolutely guarantee his conviction. But
just on the bravado, and then I'll get back to Cohen. I have a question. But on the bravado, I thought of you when I saw that in emails, fundraising emails, Donald Trump is saying, "I stormed out of the courtroom when I heard." So he characterizes a kind of behavior in the courtroom in this bravado-ish way. And he's fundraising off of that. And yet, of course, it doesn't reflect any reality as to how he is in the courtroom.
Right. Now, Donald creates his own reality. And, you know, we've seen he's nodded off asleep. You know, when you drop your head and your eyes are closed, you're sleeping. And you'll notice that since the judge said, you know, "I'm going to send you to jail if you do this again," he has been much more careful in what he said. On the other hand, we've seen ridiculous things appearing on Fox and statements by his surrogates. Alan Dershowitz, the Harvard law professor emeritus, said the other day that the gag order is completely unconstitutional. That's utter nonsense. I mean, there's hundreds of years of legal history on this. When you are out on bail, you are not a free person. You're subject to the rules of the court. You're not going to be allowed to intimidate witnesses. That's not a system of law. That is a system of dictatorship.
Well, the appeal court upheld the gag order today, right? So
yes, and we've had, you know, I tweeted about some silly nonsense that Jesse Waters has said recently, and some other people. Trump, you know, we will probably next week have a jury verdict. Donald Trump will be convicted unless there is a hung jury. And this jury has 6 alternates, not the usual 2. So there's 12 jurors and 6 alternates instead of 2. If there is an obstreperous person who wants to engage in what's called nullification, I don't care what the facts are. I think that there shouldn't be a conviction. And there's an argument to be made for nullification in some cases, where jurors should step in and say, no, the law may say this, but the facts and circumstances don't warrant that the prosecution was ever brought. But in this case, there's no reasonable basis from the facts adduced at trial for anything but a guilty verdict. So I expect next week Donald will be convicted of 34 charges, and he will
not the misdemeanor, David K. Johnston. You think he'll get the guilty verdict?
Well, it's 34 misdemeanors tied together with a state law that makes it a crime to corrupt an election, whether by helping or holding back. And that felony takes these misdemeanors and puts them together in what amounts to a conspiracy, though that is not in the charging documents. It's not unusual for prosecutors to do this. There is some chance that on appeal, the New York Court of Appeals, remember in New York we call our trial court our Supreme Court, silly as that is, there's some chance that the Intermediate Court of Appeals or the higher level Court of Appeals would overturn the conviction, but I don't think so. I think the prosecutors are on solid ground here.
And just to run that out, then the effects of that are what?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of people who might not favor Joe Biden, but they're not going to vote for put a convicted felon in the White House, and this will strengthen the cult members, the people who literally believe and post out there that Donald Trump was sent by God, he's God's messenger, etc. I mean, those people are just, no matter what happens, they're with him. But a lot of Trump support is pretty soft. It's by people who are, as in the movie Network from 1976, mad as hell and not going to take it anymore. And that's because of the last 50 some years of our mistreatment of everybody but the rich through government policies that the books behind me on the shelf there, I've been writing books about this for decades, trying to show people that, the inequality in America, the fact that your job isn't secure, this didn't have to happen. It happened because we elected politicians and put in place policies that made it happen. And we can change that. But, one of the strange things, Mark, is in the 60s when I came of age and started as a reporter at the San Jose Mercury, there was a whole empowerment movement. We can stop the war in Vietnam was one of the arguments people made. We can deal with campaign finance. We can do all sorts of things. And now there is this malaise and this cynicism, which often shows up, by the way, in the comments when I'm on with you. A lot of cynicism, and cynicism doesn't help anywhere. People need to recognize you've got the vote. So exercise it. You have the power. Joe Biden is not our boss. We're his boss. And if we don't like him, we can throw him out. And if we like him, we can give him a second term. And the same thing applies to everybody from your local city council person on up.
David, it's interesting you mentioned the 60s when you were sort of coming of age, as you put it, because I think the anger that existed in America, and you can speak to it because you really were part of that scene at that time, the anger that existed, it might have been catalyzed in different ways, but it feels sort of similar as I see so much anger in the culture and so much protest in the culture, maybe rallying around different things. Maybe then it was Vietnam, civil rights, et cetera. But this anger being marshaled for political reasons, it's something that does quack a lot like what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I don't think it's limited to the United States. I think that there are a couple of big long-term forces here at work that just have to play out. And people like me, I often feel like, there's a tsunami coming and we're putting our hand up to stop it. One of them is the tremendous economic uncertainty that's been introduced into the system. I just tweeted today, and we'll be reposting an article at DC Report tomorrow, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, just got $137 million of welfare from the state of New York. And the board that governs these things has decided in secret that he doesn't have to follow the rules, which basically require you to pay union wages. They won't say why they reached that decision or anything else, but the secretively handing out welfare in huge amounts of money. In corporations, the average American family of four now spends over $1,000 a year just on state and local subsidies. And I'm sorry, Amazon can't stand on its own 2 feet. They need welfare. I mean, when people need welfare, they're disabled, they're elderly, they're ill, they're mentally limited in their ability to earn a living. Then we should provide welfare for those people. That's an ancient principle that goes back thousands of years. But Amazon, one of the most profitable companies, most successful companies in the history of the world for a long time, it didn't show any profits because they were just reinvesting everything in the business. But I mean, good grief, Jeff Bezos is the second or third richest man in the world. Not, I would say, excluding people who own a country like the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia. And so there's this enormous anger over why am I worse off than my father or my grandfather? This applies even to people who have advantages as a general rule. People who went to college often are not better off than their parents who went to college or maybe only partly went to college. There's a change taking place right now. We've brought back all sorts of manufacturing jobs to the United States, and we're bringing more. But you can't undo 50 years of mistreatment of people in 2 or 3 years. It takes time. So one is
forward, one step back.
Fear and uncertainty, right? And then COVID, I think, has caused a lot of people to wrongly believe the end is near. There's no point. There's some students, I've heard it from some of my own grandchildren, all of whom are grown up now. There's no future. We're all going to be dead in 50 years. Utter nonsense. But it's the zeitgeist is out there with that, and most people go along with what's in the zeitgeist.
That's a brutal notion that you're hearing from your grandkids. I think and the polling, that was this latest polling out of swing states, and it wasn't just people who answered landlines. It was mostly cell phones. 95% of them, I think, were cell phone and also online. You see Trump leading Biden, and it's largely because of these things, some of which you've just talked about. Just a general sense of, things are bad, they're not getting better, they're ready for a major change. It's funny, I was talking yesterday on the show about, what does that mean, you're ready for a major change? Like, I'm ready for a major change. I want the Electoral College eliminated. Okay, now that's a major change in the way presidential elections are. But so if I answered major change in that poll, would that mean that I'm a Trumpy? No. So I'm always suspicious of these polls on some level, but they did ask these questions and then, cap it with, well, who are you going to, likely if the election was happening today, who would you vote for? And Biden loses to Trump.
It's in a number of polls he does, but I think a lot of the Trump support is rather weak. And of course, for the Democrats, winning the White House is a very simple matter this year. There are 13 states in play, 6 really important, but 13 altogether. Doesn't matter what you do in California and Massachusetts and New York, or what you do in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Those outcomes for the Electoral College are predetermined. So put all your effort into those states. And you'll notice that, in fact, Biden has gone to Wisconsin. He's not going to do the same mistake that Hillary Clinton made, where she just assumed, no, Wisconsin and Michigan, they're going to go for us. He's been focusing on that. You just saw yesterday or Sunday in Maryland, where Larry Hogan, the Republican former governor who's running for the Senate, opposed increasing the protection for the Francis Scott Key Bridge by enlarging the basically islands where the caissons are that the bridge is put in the channel. Now, we don't need to spend the money on that. Typical Republican response, we're against spending money. And of course, now it's $1 billion cost. And Ben Cardin, incumbent senator, is out there saying, the only reason we're going to get this bridge fixed and fixed quickly, it's going to be 2 to 3 years, but that's pretty quick for a project of that size, is because of Joe Biden getting the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, passed. And that's an example of where an ill-informed electorate will vote for Hogan. An informed electorate on that issue that he staked a lot on, I don't think they're going to vote for that. And I don't understand why people would vote for politicians who act against not just their personal interests, but the interests of their whole state. I expect the senators from Delaware to be supporting the credit card industry, whether I like what they're doing or not, because that's the headquarters of the credit card industry.
Sure, they're taking care of their constituency. I have a couple of questions that are coming in from people. One about when you say weak support, Randy's asking, does weak support for Trump still not translate into votes for Trump? What does David K. Johnston mean when he says that the support is weak?
Well, if you looked at polling at the same stage during Barack Obama's first term, he was not going to be reelected, and he easily was reelected. This polling we're 6 months out from the voting. And as I've mentioned previously on your show, John Geraci, the pollster, in his book Poll Arise, POLL caps -Arise, points out that fewer than 1 in 100 people who are reached by pollsters will answer the questions. In some polls, it's 1 in 200 who will do it. And even if your demographics tell you we've matched the right number of white Americans over 50, etc., you're not getting a representative sample when there's hardly anybody answering the phone. So I'd be very cautious about the polling in the survey here. And also, everywhere that Dobbs, the decision that for the first time ever took away a right from American citizens, everywhere that Dobbs is directly or indirectly on the ballot, the Democrats are doing very well. And the Republicans, are now putting forth, they want to eliminate birth control. They've said that now. So not everybody, but a number of key Republicans. In the words of the woman at the Heritage Foundation, sex should be consequential. That is, have sex, expect you'll get pregnant. It doesn't strike me as a saleable policy.
Well, I mean, that they're out of step with the majority of America is not in doubt.
Senator Britt from Alabama wants the government to track all pregnancies. And then police can come and say, what happened to your pregnancy? 1 in 6 pregnancies doesn't work out with the birth of a child. 1 in 6. Yeah. Mostly early spontaneous abortions, which for the woman involved, especially if she wants to be pregnant, are often emotionally very trying. If you've been trying to get pregnant and you end up having 3 spontaneous abortions in a row, it's demoralizing.
Of course.
It's none of the government's damn business. But the Republicans, who say they're the party of freedom, no, they want Stalinistic, Maoistic control of people.
And that Katie Britt, I'll remind everybody, was the spokesperson for the GOP response after the State of the State of the Union. She was, mocked and deservedly so. I'm going to get back to Trump in a second. There's a major IRS judgment against him, and then we'll wrap up. But I want to quickly visit what's happening in Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia, David. I'm seeing 2 things. I think you have said that there's really been a diminishment of Russian power in many ways. In other words, that Ukrainians are gaining ground in this conflict. And yet I'm seeing that there have been Russian incursions into the north of Ukraine. Can you speak to the Ukraine situation?
Sure. Remember that Ukraine only has about 1/6 the population of the Russian Federation. But close to half of the Russian armaments are gone. They've lost tanks, personnel carriers. They have a variation of our AWACS surveillance jets, so you can monitor and coordinate the battlefield from up in the sky. They've lost 3 of them, and they only had a handful to begin with. And one of them they lost because they parked it on the ground and didn't do anything to protect it. And it was taken out by a Ukrainian missile. The Ukrainians are now launching missiles as far as 1,000 miles inside Russian territory and hitting refineries. And Russia is a one-node economy. 98% of corporate profits in Russia are connected to fossil fuels. 98%. It's a one-node economy. Putin just fired his defense minister. Now, he has not been arrested on corruption charges, but a whole bunch of his underlings were arrested in the last couple of days on corruption charges. So Sergei Shoji, the defense minister, was just dismissed. Don't be surprised if he gets brought up on corruption charges. The Russian army, which doesn't have sergeants, been that way for forever, is now conscripts, many of them brought out of prisons. There is a video out there that I watched the other day where a Russian commander tells his soldiers, we're going to launch this attack in Ukraine, and none of you are coming back. Well, how's that for building morale? You're going to die. He doesn't say, unless you fight valiantly for Mother Russia. The war is not going well, and if we hadn't had this pause in supplying weaponry, and if frankly, the Biden administration had moved much more quickly to supply certain kinds of weaponry, I think that we'd be much further along. But if the Ukrainians are still free on January 20th of next year, and if the Democrats have control of the House and the Senate and the White House, you're going to see a much larger influx of money, almost all of which is spent in the United States. This is a jobs program for Americans who make everything from bullets to missiles. The upper hand will go very quickly to the Ukrainians. And, you know, if Ukraine loses, the rest of your life, certainly mine and yours, is going to be a war with Russia as they try to not only first build back the old Soviet empire, as Putin has repeatedly said he intends to do, and then go after some NATO countries, Poland being a key one on the list.
Well, there's to be picked up next time. There's a lot of back and forth on this in the chat. We'll pick up on it next time. I do want to, because it's a huge judgment here on the part of the IRS, double back to this immense judgment against Donald Trump by the IRS. And it's so consistent with the kind of stuff that you've talked about in your books and the ways in which not only Trump, but at the high end of the spectrum, there are many who try to game the system. Now, this, as usual, looks like a clunky kind of gaming the system that Trump did, but he's got $100 million. It's really north of $100 million with penalties.
What Donald did is the New York Times reported this Sunday, and I got to tell you, having done tax reporting for many years, this is a phenomenal and incredibly expensive piece of investigation where they found these little facts in a bunch of files, some in Chicago, some in Washington and elsewhere, and pieced them together in an absolutely brilliant way. Donald Trump wrote off his Chicago hotel tower, which looms over the river, as being worth nothing. So he got a huge tax break for that. Then he shifted the company into another partnership, which he controlled. So he basically took it from his left pocket and said, oh, it's worth nothing, and moved it all into his right pocket and said, oh, it's worth a ton of money, and I'm going to start depreciating these buildings. He's done this before. If we had every one of his tax returns, I think we would find out he's done it many times. And this is being handled as a civil matter. Most tax cases are. There's only about 500 convictions a year in this country for federal tax crimes, and they're usually paying bribes, receiving bribes if you're a public official, or drug trafficking. They're not the tax crime per se. We don't make any serious effort to go after people who cheat like Donald Trump.
In fact, the IRS didn't challenge his initial claim, David, in 2008 that the building was worthless.
Right. And just not utterly nonsense claim about this. But this is how Donald operates. He just, makes stuff up. He tells his staff what to do. And the secrecy of the tax code is his friend. 100 years ago, in 1924, tax returns were public record. And who made how much among very wealthy people were front page news. There's a variation of that I think we should go back to. But in any event, this is just one of the many reasons that even if Donald Trump lives into his 90s, the rest of his life is going to be endless litigation, incarceration, or maybe if he's lucky, home confinement. But
he's been ordered to pay $83.3 million in a defamation case, of course, $454 million in a civil fraud case brought to by the New York Attorney General, of course, and those judgments are under appeal. But this is with penalties, David. This is over $100 million that the government wants.
Oh yeah, no. In the Chicago Trump Tower case, I'm sure it would be easily $100 million. I mean, the building cost to put up something like $850 million. So if you write it off as zero, in the tax bracket he was in at the time, or should have been in, there's roughly a third of it just on the federal level. And Trump is, the important thing to remember is, Trump was tried twice for tax fraud, civil, not criminal, convicted in both cases. He forged his own tax return he put his tax accountant's name on it as the preparer with a photocopy machine. Lucky he wasn't prosecuted and sent to prison then for forgery. And, Donald's understood his whole life how to play the game, how to be a white-collar criminal and get away with it. And keep in mind, we spend a lot of money on things like having police cars drive up and down the street, which the limited evidence shows that do absolutely nothing to reduce crime. We've had a dramatic reduction in crime in this country. Despite all the efforts of Fox News and Trump, crime numbers are way down. Murder numbers are down. Reported rape numbers, forcible entry, robbery, all of those are down sharply, not just in the last year or two, but compared to the 90s, the 80s, the 60s, the 1920s. Long-term trend. What's been going up and up and up is white-collar crime. And we need to have a fundamental rethinking of both the white-collar crime principles, because often the cases are so complicated you can't get a conviction. And secondly, the resources we put into it, because the white-collar crimes are costing people far more than street crimes. Well,
that part of the Justice Department, as you know, was sapped of a lot of funding during the Trump administration, probably in response to that. We got to let David go, but this question real quick. Could Trump pardon himself if he won the election? Could he pardon himself of that tax judgment? Could he pardon himself of anything else?
The Constitution gives an almost unlimited power to the president to pardon people, but a self-pardon, I do not believe the Supreme Court would support, because he could, as president, have me shot, and he pardons himself. And then tomorrow he has somebody else shot, and then he pardons himself. I mean, you can't have a system of law where the president can pardon himself. So, well, it's not in the Constitution that he can pardon anyone except himself, because the framers never occurred to them this would become an issue. Even this Supreme Court is not going to endorse presidential self-pardon. And of course, it won't do him any good on state-level charges.
Follow David K. Johnston on Twitter. We have links to all of his stuff below this video, and we love talking to you, David. Thank you. This is a key inflection moment in this country's history, so we'll talk next week.
Next week, we may be talking about a verdict. It could be as early next Tuesday, more likely late next week or the week after.
David K. Johnston, everybody. Bye, David. See you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. Wow. Love our conversations with David K. Johnston. Got Jay Kogan coming up. Jay's here already. Love it. What have we? What's our timing, Kim? You can help me on the timing.
I think we need to
go
right
to Turbo News and talk to Jay. You want to do?
I think we need to go right to Mr.
Jay
Kogan
and then do Turbo News.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You want to go right to Mr. Kogan?
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Kim, with a rare giving up of the spotlight there.
Kim, how are you?
for Jay Kogan. Man.
I'm just excited he's
I
here.
think
I
I'm the
hear,
most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
All right, I don't know what that's in relation to.
hear what the guy
but,
has to say. I mean, you know.
Yeah, he's a pretty big deal in the world of show business. I'm really happy that he's here.
He wrote
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy is he's very funny, and his funny he's turned into a career. Comedy writer, producer, director. He was a Grand Poobah executive producer on Frasier and The Simpsons, and has been involved in so many different series that have done super well, and in part, I suspect, because of his involvement. I can't wait to hear what he's involved in now. I said, if you can find it in your heart, I think our audience would love to meet you. And so now you'll meet him. Jay Kogan, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to me. Welcome to Jay Kogan.
Yeah, you are you're a real deal. You're a real deal.
I am the president of show business. I don't know if you knew that. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I am. And by the way, I've been doing as bad a job as Donald Trump has been doing in terms of keeping show business alive.
The state of show business is endangered, huh?
It's not great right now. It's not great.
Yeah. What are the biggest threats to you comedy? I always feel like comedy is hard to write, like artificial intelligence wise. I always see that as something of a threat. Is that true or false?
I think that comedy is going to be the very hardest thing for AI to conquer. Eventually, AI will conquer everything, including all of us, and will absorb our beings, and we won't exist at all. But the very last thing it does before it destroys the world is tell a joke. Because for a computer for the AI to understand what a joke is, it doesn't analyze jokes. It looks at what has been written and what other people have called jokes. It doesn't mean it understands what humor is and what sarcasm is or what surprise is or any of those things. So when you ask AI to write something funny, it always writes something not funny. It writes something.
Also, Jay, well, this is what strikes me is that comedy evolves. Comedy is different. Like you could say, write me a 1950s type joke, or maybe that's the wrong way to put it by decades or timing, but like a Henny Youngman type joke. And then you could say, write me a long story type joke, like a John Mulaney type joke. I mean, they're just totally different animals.
Yeah, but it would write you a John Mulaney joke and a Henny Youngman joke. It would just look at all the jokes that they wrote and they have done, and then come up with some reference point to switch it around. And by doing that, you don't make a funny joke. You just make something else. So It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me. I'm secure in that my business won't be destroyed by computer right now. What it is going to be destroyed by is money managers. And that is the thing that's destroying all of show business at the time.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, show business has always been a money-making institution, right? And it's always been like, people like, who started the Hollywood studios, like entrepreneurs, people who are sort of like, should we make cigars or should we make movies? And they would put up a business and do stuff, and then they would operate on their gut, and they would make movies, many flops and a couple of hits, and just sort of go forward based on that. Roger Corman, who just passed, was a guy who just said, I'm going to make movies for a certain amount of money, and I will make profit on every single one of my movies because I'm making it for so cheap. And every now and then a big one came and he made a lot of money. That was the model. Now stockholders are involved and they want quarterly reports and quarterly earnings, and they want every quarter to grow and profits. And that's not how show business works. We're very cyclical, and people sometimes like movies and sometimes hate movies, and they release The Fall Guy and it doesn't do great, and suddenly Planet of the Apes gets released, and for some reason it does do it. Like nobody knows why. So
and in that spirit, it's particularly the movie business, but I suppose it's true in television too. I was going to say there's a derivative quality, but you can find it in television.
That's what I
Western.
Do. I'm derivative. That's how I made my big money.
You're yeah, that's right. Yeah. The head of derivative, which is really pretty much all development executives. But I mean, if you are in development, to be fair to executives, you're trying to find things where you can keep your job for a while and keep your kids in private school or whatever the hell it is. So you make safe decisions a lot of the time.
What? But that doesn't create hits. What it does is you make a decision that looks good in the eyes of your boss and keeps you around for another quarter, but it doesn't necessarily make the thing. If you picked up Seinfeld, if you're the guy who said, I want that, which was a weird decision, NBC loves you forever. You know, I mean, but people aren't doing that, and I understand why, by the way.
So you don't think there are as many bold decisions being made on content as there used to be?
No, people are scared shitless. I mean, can we work blue here?
We don't love it, but it's fine. We're
no,
not. It's not a deal buster.
They're scared. Let me just say they're scared.
Okay.
and rightfully so, because they're losing audience and losing profit and all this other kind of stuff. So I understand why, you know, they're concerned, and they would say, let's take a piece of IP that everybody knows and remake that, because my boss will know that I am taking something the company owns and repurposing it. That's good for profits. I'm doing a decision that everybody can be on board with, and if it fails, nobody can blame me, because I'm the one who thought, you know, another Marvel movie was a good idea.
I mean, and Hollywood's been informed by this kind of thing forever. I'm just seeing even in the chat, people sort of suggesting if you put the right pedigree together, somehow, you know, you're going to end up with a good project, and yet that's not always the case. Hey, look, and I don't know if it wasn't successful or not, so please don't take this the wrong way, but you were part of one of the greatest shows. You've been part of actually a couple of the greatest shows in television history, The Simpsons, also Frasier. And Simpsons is still running, and Frasier, they rebooted. I mean, even though a couple of characters weren't there anymore.
Right.
And, you know, so, and I don't know, I think you had maybe very little to do with the reboot of Frasier. I don't know, you can tell me.
I was a consultant on it, but I mean, here's the thing. It's, you know, it's not taking the world by storm. I will say that. Like, your friends and neighbors aren't saying, did you see the Frasier reboot last night? You know, but it's good. It's a good show, and people should watch it. That's fine. But it's sort of it's coming from a different world, a world where we had 4 networks to watch, to where we have 50,000 things to watch. I think it's hard to sort of get a foothold on the zeitgeist. And you're exactly right, Mark. No one knows anything, and no one knows what's going to be popular. No one knows what's going to be good. I don't. When I write it, I don't know if it's going to be good. I just know that I like it. That's really all I can do.
Jay Kogan, you've been super successful, as I was saying, and I'm asking this. That's not just me blowing smoke.
Another modifier on that?
I need to say that for the next thing I'm going to say.
Okay.
When you go in now, or when you're part of a pitch now, even though you're super successful, Jay Kogan with a history, and isn't there a problem that's associated with age?
Oh yeah. I mean, by the way, I would like you to add super duper successful, because I feel that would really reflect who I am and what I've done. Thank you very much. No, I got a gray beard here, kind of thing going on. I'm an older guy. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors that I don't check a lot of boxes in terms of diversity. I don't check a lot of boxes in terms of youth. I check a huge box in terms of fat people, but I don't know that's really people don't go that direction a lot of the time. But yeah, I'm there, and I'm you know, what I have to sell is in spite maybe of my age or you know, my pedigree. It's not really about that. And I do wind up teaming up with people who are younger or who have diversity, especially when I'm doing shows about younger people and diverse people. Because right now, executives want shows coming from people who have lived the authentic experience of what they're writing about. And I have led the singularly most boring life you've ever heard of. So nobody really wants to hear about my life.
Well, more on that in a second, but I was going to say that's smart, though, of those people to become connected to somebody who can put a little comedy magic dust on something that might be an authentic experience.
Well, my experience as a writer and building stories certainly helps, and it's something that people can learn, and I can teach them as they go. And I was taught by our friend Sam Simon and by other people that Jim Brooks and other people that I've been lucky enough to work with. And that's something that you do teach other people, and how to make a show you can teach other people when you get a chance to do that. So I'm helpful. I add value. Let's put it that way. I add value.
Your dad was a comedy writer, wasn't he?
He was. He was a great comedy writer. He's still really funny. I show him scripts all the time. He's always pitching jokes and usually gets many of them in the show.
Is that right? How old is your dad?
He's 90 years old.
Wow. That's just awesome.
Yeah,
Really is awesome.
He's super, super creaky and bent over. And, he's exactly the kind of 90-year-old you think. He's not like this virile, like, I'm 90. It's like he's creaked over, hearing
I think we're all headed for creaked over if we're lucky,
Yeah.
So the state of the state is what we've talked about a bit, but you found this world of podcasting, which is also a kind of robust world that's increased in popularity, even though you didn't think it could become more popular. I didn't.
I feel
Don't
like I'm
Be Alone
pioneering.
is the name of the Jay Kogan podcast. What is this about?
Yeah, I am as far as I know, I was the second podcast after yours. I don't know if that's true, but so I thought I'm in a pioneering state. Am I wrong about this?
I'm certainly not going to check it out.
All right.
So,
Well, anyway,
yeah.
So I started in the pandemic. I don't know if you were aware that we had a pandemic and there was not a lot to do. So I started this podcast where it was basically, I was aware that everybody had there's an epidemic of loneliness, not just COVID. And so in order to fight loneliness, I thought what I should do is get in a room with people and then talk about being in a room with people. So my show is literally, I don't do, the beam in kind of thing. We sit in a room and I talk to people about my problems. And I have those people help me solve my problems. So it's Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan is every week. I get somebody smart and funny and interesting, like Lisa Kudrow or Bryan Cranston or a million funny comics and sometimes people we play poker with, and they come on my show and they're funny and entertaining, but also they're talking about connection and talking about whatever specific problem I have in that particular week, and they help me through it.
Isn't that great? I'm just looking at comments and questions for Jay Kogan as we. Here's a guy. You're so accomplished. Even your guest list, Lisa Kudrow, Bryan Cranston. I'm thinking, could one of the questions you asked them is associated with coming to do our show?
Yes.
I appreciate that.
I can paste it on top. I have Matt Groening coming up, and I have Conan O'Brien coming up.
Wow! Look at you, Jay Kogan. That's terrific.
I got to build an audience. I don't have the bit. People love you from the get-go, Mark. People just love you, and I have to build an audience.
Oh well, thank you, Jay. Yeah. But what interests me or intrigues me is, do those people to whom you've referred kind of really talk about like problems they have or issues that might arise in their lives?
But they talk about it's. I frame it in terms of my problems, so it's much more. It's much easier to talk about my problems and then give advice than necessarily talking about their own problems. I don't ask them to open up, but people wind up opening up when they start to talk about personal things. So it's helpful.
Yeah, I can see that. It's funny. I was going to start today's show by complaining about this thing that happened to me because I had a double oral surgery, and this is a weird thing though, a phenomenon. Because my mouth was open for so long during the surgery, it created a TMJ with the jaw. Never had TMJ before.
Right.
And it's so bad that it's shooting, like the pain shoots up into my head, and it was a month ago. So I go to the doctor, a special TMJ doctor yesterday, and he uses a laser and all this other stuff on me, but it doesn't feel any better today. I'm supposed to go back tomorrow. But I mentioned this because I thought there should be a show for the host just to complain about various physical infirmities, and then,
You're asking the wrong guy for advice, by the way. You shouldn't be asking a dentist. You should be asking a sex worker what they do. Like, how do they...
I get it. Okay. I get it.
All right. I mean, but you need, I find, and this is maybe true or not true. You can tell me because you are the grand poobah of this world of broadcasting, that being authentic and sharing pieces of yourself is actually core to what people are listening for. I think when I listen to podcasts, when I listen to your show or when I listen to anybody else's show, I want to hear about the real lives of the people I'm listening to. I want to get to know them. And I want to get to know their world. And that's what I'm listening for.
I think that's a really good point. It's always weird because, as you've kind of just noted, you need some kind of shimmery object to get them into your world, and then you can share certain things that might give the show a different texture than they might find elsewhere. So there is a balance. I think if you just come on and talk about yourself, maybe you find an audience, but it helps when Conan O'Brien's coming in and then you're talking about yourself, and people are there to hear Conan.
We pay our audience. We pay our audience. We pay our audience a stipend, $5 a listen. So
wow,
we're building our numbers rapidly with that.
Don't Be Alone is the podcast with Jay Kogan. You did something else, and I know we only have a minute or so, but you did something else. You did Philosophy Friday. Was that what it was called, Jay?
I still do that, Philosophy Friday, on Twitter. It's I start a subject on Twitter, and then we group of people who want to talk about it. It's usually a life question or something that we can delve deeply into that could be fun or interesting. And then it, like everything on Twitter, devolves into a horrible argument. So
look at this. Done. Subscribed, says Uncle Russ. Look at you, Jay.
I love you, Uncle Russ. Fantastic.
You should be loving me, Jay Kogan. I'm the one who made Uncle Russ happen for you.
I have loved you for years. You know this.
Jay, you're a brilliant writer, and I thought of you independent of the fact you were coming in because I just lost another friend of mine, Sam Rubin, who's really a good pal. And I thought, well, this is the second dear friend whose name's Sam that died too young.
I was heartbroken when Sam died. I was heartbroken. Such a great guy.
Me as well. I mean, really, and I often think of, gosh, what would I be doing with Sam right now? Or what would Sam be doing right now? I think about it all the time. And at Sam's memorial service, Jay wrote the most magnificent eulogy. So good, everyone, that I asked Jay to send it to me. I said, Jay, I know this is awkward, but please send it to me. I thought it was that good, and it is, pal. You're brilliant, and
I will do it for Sam Rubin too if they ask. But Sam Rubin was a spectacular person. He was specifically a guy who combined charm and a little bit of smarm together to be adorable. I don't know how he did it, but he would overreach sometimes and be but it always worked on him. It always worked on him.
That's actually a really great take, because there was a kind of a wink in his eye, or what is a glint in his eye, or whatever that thing is in somebody's eye. You're right. And that made it work. And I mentioned this yesterday, but just to tell you, the day after the Oscars, this is a guy who's been working all weekend. He's been covering the Oscars. He does that morning show. He's up all night with watching the Oscars, et cetera, and then all the parties, blah, blah, blah. He came on this show, the show you're on right now, from his bed because he had been given the morning off just to do a segment about the Oscars. I mean, he could have easily said, and I would have been cool with it if he said, "Hey, Mark, I can't do it today. I could do it tomorrow." Mm-hmm. He didn't. He came from bed, and he was terrific. He was. Yeah. I just thought so giving and so gifted. Yeah, really sad.
He loved broadcasting. He loved what he did. I see the same joy in it that you have. Honestly, there's something about the stuff that you bring and Sam brings to this world of broadcasting that's very special. It's not. You guys make it look easy, but it's not easy at all.
Jay, should I predecease you? I need you to step up and write something, okay, man? Get it out there. Put it on the Don't Be Alone podcast, all right?
All right. And you'll be a guest on my show? Will you be a guest on my show now that I've done this?
I'd be honored.
Now that you've blackmailed me?
Yes, let's make it happen. I'd like to be on with another celebrity so that I can get them to be on my show, if I could.
That's not how it works, buddy. You're the celebrity.
Okay, well, all right. Little by little.
Kim can come.
Don't Be Alone is the podcast from the great Jay. There's Philosophy Friday. Yeah. Terrific. Tony rallied it for you. Don't Be Alone is the podcast available across all the podcast platforms. We love you, Jay. Come back and visit again. Jay Kogan, everybody.
Thanks, man.
Bye, pal.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How cool is Jay Kogan, everyone? He's really cool.
He's funny. I like him.
Yeah. Super funny, super smart,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you should, John. John says, I didn't know much about Sam Rubin because I really never paid much attention. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I really never paid much attention to TMZ reporters. He's not a TMZ reporter, John. But I could see where he could be considered in that category. Yeah, I understand. But I think he wouldn't appreciate being in that category, but I could see where you might confuse that.
I love
definitely
Charlie.
Subscribing, says Murphy. Nice job. Jay Kogan picks up another, yeah.
Charlie says there's a reason for comedy because as the system takes us to the cleaners, we're going to need it.
Don't you know that's true? Don't you know? Here's a nice encouraging word from Wes. My aunt had a TMJ problem in the mid-'80s. Turned out to be MS.
Oh,
wow.
Wow. I don't think you have that. I mean, you have a reason why this is happening.
Yes,
yeah.
I do have a reason. It was because I think if the one oral surgery had gone down, it would have been bad.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, enough. But the second oral surgery, which was 4 days later because the stitches popped on the first one, you'll remember I did the show, even though the stitches had popped.
Bleeding from the mouth.
Bleeding from the mouth. I did the show. So how about a couple of, subscribers? Share the show. Do something. I don't know. PayPal, Patreon. Anyway, the point is, it was that second go-round, where the mouth is open again for over an hour that apparently caused it. But now, I mean, I literally can't eat. I can't move my mouth. I can't open my mouth wide enough to get food except for so it's really weird and bad. So I know it sucks.
The weirdest things happen to you. I mean, trigger finger, can't open your mouth to eat. Like, what else weird?
Thank you for noticing because I am feeling as though my personal biology is nickel and diming me into being angry. It does explain my attitude, though. Yeah, you can understand that. Yeah.
So did they tell you to ice your jaw, or do you have to do jaw exercises?
He said wet heat now, and now I do a kind of a TMJ exercise a little bit. Although I asked him yesterday, the special doctor they sent me to, I said, are there any exercises you can send me home with? He said, sure. He said, but they don't work. Okay. But, I mean,
everybody's a comedian.
I am able to see my doctor for TMJ is a specialist. Is
Schafhausen
the third.
Right.
Yeah. Too much coffee, somebody's saying. This is like being around my mom. My mom, everything in my mom's world related to me is, well, Mark, you drink too much coffee. That's the reason. You drink too much coffee. I drink too much coffee, Mom. You are the one who leaves a pot of dark coffee available 24 hours a day. It's like a diner around here. And then you blame me for drinking too much of it. Anyway, I do think medical marijuana, says A Golf. Yeah, I don't know. I'll take, sure.
Does it hurt to talk?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. All right.
It doesn't. I actually, I get generalized pain, like in the first thing in the morning, but it doesn't hurt to talk. It hurts to open the mouth to eat or something like that. Like I could never eat a sandwich or something. It would be insanely painful. Anyway. So, no, it was fine. The MS statement was funny, so don't worry about it, Wes. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah. Tony, if you would please...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Show everybody the meetup information again. This is our big June Swoon meetup. Kim will be there. Many of you say, I'd like to talk to Kim, like, off the air. Well...
Kim, how are you?
Kim will be at the June Swoon. She may be one of the biggest swooners at June Swoon.
It's a
possibility. And there's going to be some intense swooning, and yet Kim may outdo everybody in the swoon department. It's a virtual meetup. Special guests are scheduled. You will love them. Everyone from Spencer Christian to John Rothman. As I mentioned, I'm going to put the bat beam up. We'll see if Brett Burkhart maybe, and Pat Thurston. And, of course, Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC. Courtney's going to be there on camera. It's June 3rd, which is a Monday evening, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. And the first 25 people will lock spots, and then we close it up because we want time to kind of visit with everybody, people to ask questions, etc. Sign up at our PayPal with a $50 donation to the show. You'll lock up a spot, and please note with the donation, Meetup or June Swoon. And if you want, you can RSVP. It's not critical, but it's an option. A special email address for the June Swoon Meetup is mtsmeetup@gmail.com. We'll send you a Zoom link if you lock up a spot, and you will zoom in, and your swoon is just a few clicks away on June 3rd. So please join us and be part of the fun. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Check this out. Drink more coffee. Coachella Valley can help. Angel in the Bay Area with a 10 spot. I agree. I love the coffee.
Big shout out.
Generally, I don't drink too much coffee after the show. I usually try to keep my coffee first part of the day. But I do love my coffee. Yes. Charlie Delano says, I started listening to KGO in the 70s. Now, we came out of a radio station called KGO, for many who don't know, is in the Bay Area, huge talk radio station, and our show was wildly successful. Then the station went away, and now we are here. And Charlie Delano is one of our viewer listeners.
Right on.
Isn't that really cool? Yeah. Angel in the Bay Area agrees. Sandy agrees. A lot of agreement. Well, you know, I could keep going here, and I feel like some days I want to keep going. I think there's been some pretty good information in the show today.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And by that, I mean, we gave you Pulitzer Prize winner David K. Johnston. In the first hour, we did a Law and Disorder that was really fascinating, weird, and a little disturbing. And then I thought we stuck the landing with Jay Kogan. You know,
Totally.
He's just a great guy to visit with. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, smash the like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, smash it with your iron rod, and join us for the June Swoon on May 3rd. If you got the time on the schedule, I think it'll be a lot of fun. Tony, you're going to be there, I know also.
Thanks, Tony.
And yeah, Albert will be there.
Albert, thank you.
I really think it's it may be our biggest swoon event yet. So the after party live is next.
We'll do it live.
And
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Kim is over there, so check it out.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow, the great John Rothman joins. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you.